What's up, guys? That Really Gross Guy here. We're back and we're going to talk a little bit more about Hydroid and some of the more recent fixes that have come with Hydroid's rework, because after a little bit of time letting Hydroid settle, they decided to add a little bit more changes to his rework, and for good reason, in my opinion. There was not, people were not all that hyped about his changes and whatnot, and I don't know, I thought it was definitely a good fix, but I felt like it was a step in the right direction. It did need a little work, so I am happy that they actually did continue on and add some additional fixes, some of which I have a little thing set up here over to the side. And I thought this was already currently a thing when I did my last video on the rework. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but it mentions that Hydroid's energy has been increased from 150 to 188, and that is when it's maxed out. I thought that was already the case, but I could be wrong. But that is one of their notes, so I wanted to make sure that it was, you know, I let you guys know that was the case. So anyways, we are in a mobile defense, and this is kind of where I feel like Hydroid to a degree shines in his you know, his defensive kind of capabilities. Same with obviously like defense and whatnot, but I decided to take in one of my Hydroids. This one is actually pretty underpowered when it comes to compared to my other one, but I thought I could kind of bring him in and show you guys, you know, where Hydroid stands currently, because in my opinion, Hydroid is pretty damn powerful at the moment. As you can see, you know, I'm only a level 26 Hydroid with no Forma in him. I don't even think I have a potato. I might have a potato in Hydroid, but you just saw that these guys are going to be between level 40 and 50. And I just took down quite a few infested. Now I'm using infested kind of for the example of making it easy for me to use the puddle. So take it with you know, a grain of salt, whether you want to run against Grenier, or, you know, because they are going to kind of keep range from you, or if you're going to run against Corpus. Obviously, you may need to work a little harder to get the enemies to join your puddle. But one thing I do love about Hydroid's puddle and the way it's changed is the fact that you can now drag the enemies into the puddle if you really want to, which you guys have seen me do quite a couple times. But pulling them in here, getting them added to the pool party. But it works just so incredibly well. Now, I think, I honestly, even though Hydroid's survivability is not necessarily all that great, I feel like Hydroid has now become, like, a really good solo frame. Obviously, one of the points that I'm going to make also makes him a really good team-based frame. So, I'm being killed by this Toxin, if you haven't noticed. Toxin is currently my downfall against these higher level enemies, but other than that, they can't really do a whole lot to my Hydroid at the moment. See, the Toxin is where they're getting me. But anyways, when it comes to him being a solo frame, it works out really good because he can avoid damage by, you know, just dipping down into his puddle and taking in as many enemies that are nearby as possible, and that allows for him to, you know, to take on enemies without taking on any damage. So, see, here you have me just like pulling all these guys in and just absolutely demolishing them. Now, the ticks that you see popping up with the enemies, now the ticks are all based on enemies, what's it called? Their max health. So now instead of it just doing like a specific strength, you know, strength-based damage, it's actually going to be doing a percentage of enemy max health. Now, I don't know exactly what that percentage is. I'm pretty sure it scales up with power strength, but at the same time, it also scales up with... look at all these guys here. Let's see if we can pull all these guys in. Get all these guys. And then I'll also cast Barrage on here to add the extra damage. So, pull all these guys in. Have a little bit of a pool party once again, but what was I mentioning? Oh yeah, the Undertow now damages a percentage of the target's max health, and it also, while they're submerged, it will slowly increase in damage. So you saw 63, 94, 126, 159, 191, 223. So it's now going to scale up as you, they stay in Undertow longer, which is really awesome. I really like that about the about his Undertow now. Now it's actually making him be a damage dealer, unlike he kind of used to be. He was a little bit of a crowd control, but he really didn't have enough power strength to make that big of a difference. So let me just real quick do this. Pull in a couple of these guys. And he's really great for sticking around like a mobile defense or a defense point and just pulling in a whole bunch of enemies and just dealing tons and tons of damage. His Barrage, especially if you decide to use Corroding Barrage, really makes a huge difference. As you can see here, me pulling in all these guys again, just making this really difficult. You can cast Barrage on it once again, get the damage going. Now, this is him, kind of thriving as a solo frame. Now, the best part about him, teamwork-wise, is while you're in this puddle, allies can shoot into your puddle, and the damage that they basically add to the puddle is going to be halved. So, if, let's say, a good example is if someone shoots the Penta at the puddle, they blow it up, and it would normally do 10,000 damage. It's going to half that number, and it's going to apply 5,000 damage to the enemies in the puddle, which is awesome. That's going to allow for some really cool synergies with Hydroid and other frames, so I'm excited about that. I feel like it's a very good, this Toxin, man. This Toxin's just destroying my face. But, as you can see, other than Toxin, he's holding his own, no problem. But that, yeah, like I said, that's going to allow for some great synergies, some excellent, damage numbers. You're going to have enemies on defense points just absolutely getting demolished because you're getting, set up with, could you imagine a Hydroid with his puddle with a Mirage and her doppelganger, like Penta Delio or something? Delio. Anyways, really good combinations. Now, let me know what combinations you think would be amazing for this. I'm about to get toxified again. What combinations do you think would be excellent with Hydroid's puddle ability and whatnot? So, I think it's great. I think it's a really good difference. Undertow deals impact damage to enemies, so if you're going to be fighting certain types of enemies, just know that it's going to be an impact damage base. So your impact obviously won't affect. For instance, we're running against like chargers and stuff, and I'm pretty sure they're the weakest against slash. So impact may not necessarily be the best against these guys. So just keep that in mind when you're picking how to mod your frame or what kind of enemies you'll be going against. You may want to keep that in mind. So, but also the Barrage, the Barrage is chargeable, which I didn't realize the first time I was kind of reviewing his rework, which I guess is kind of good because you can pick a larger area to target, or you can kind of like people used to do different type of range builds, whether they increased or decreased range depending on how they wanted their ultimate to work, or if they wanted their barrage to be a large area or a very small targeted area. You can now kind of alter that just based on how long you charge the ability for, which is really cool. One thing that range will be beneficial for is the size of Hydroid's puddle, and I feel like that's probably something you should look into, even though his other abilities now you can choose what kind of range you want on it just by charging it. The puddle, however, you may want to be larger so that enemies can shoot into it easier to create that extra damage we were just talking about. And also just have more area of effect for enemies. So it's up to you guys, you know, how you want to run your builds. If you want to focus on your puddle, you could probably scale with power strength. If you want to focus on your the amount of enemies you can put in your puddle, you may want to add range to it. But if you choose to go a different route and you want to, instead of use range, and you want to really stick with that corrosive barrage, and you want to focus on his barrage, or you want to focus on the damage he does with his pilfer or his tentacle swarm, or if you decide that you want him to be a loot machine still, you can use the pilfering swarm, right? Pilfering swarm, I believe it's called. But that loot augment for his ultimate. But I don't know, it's up to you guys. I feel like he's in a good place right now, and hopefully they don't change him too much. They are going to be monitoring him very closely and seeing you know, what people think about him and if he's too overpowered and if there's changes that need to be made. Like I said, I feel like he's in a good place, but I wouldn't be surprised if some things slowly pop up and we find, you know, people dealing thousands or like hundreds of thousands of damage with really short amount of time. We may see a nerf kind of like we saw with who was that that got nerfed that was everybody was like super adamant about their powers. I mean, obviously Excalibur got a little bit of a nerf, but someone with an area of effect ability recently saw a really big nerf. People weren't all that happy about it, but I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. Actually, Saren. I know Saren was one of them because people used to spam her ultimate ability. And that's no longer really a thing. I could kind of see that where they need to start nerfing Hydroid because of the amount of damage he can do maybe with his puddle and maybe enemies shooting into it. I don't know. But let me know what you guys think. For the most part, not too much has changed other than like a little bit of like efficiency type stuff where his his tentacles don't flail as much, so you can have better chances of shooting enemies that are held in a tentacle. But other than that, most of it is just like the sounds being altered so it's easier to hear. The performance of Tentacle Swarm when it comes to like maybe PCs, whether it can run it, you know, frame rate wise. And then the same thing of tentacles that come out of the walls were kind of a little bit strange, where they weren't as efficient necessarily as the ones that were coming out of the floor, but they kind of fixed that. But and also lastly was Sentinel abilities are disabled when in Undertow, and I get it because the biggest issue they were saying was having vacuum pull in items, so that when you're trying to target an enemy to pull them into Undertow, the items would get in the way and you wouldn't be able to do that. But I also understand that maybe, I don't know if vacuum was also pulling in energy. I don't know if that was happening. But things like Shade may have affected it. I'm not too sure, but I'm sure that somehow they were affecting his Undertow and made it maybe not as powerful as it should have been. But other than that, that's about it. Yeah, we basically got everything. So basically, big things to look that were different was the slight increase in energy, the Tempest Barrage, you know, the sounds of Tempest Barrage, Tentacle Swarm, and whatnot. The aquatic sounds you could hear a little bit better. enemies being able to shoot into Undertow to do damage, and Undertow doing damage based on percentage of their max health and scaling up to increase more damage the more enemies were in there, and that damage is impact based. So other than that, and the tentacles kind of holding enemies up in the air. So that is about it. Pretty good. I know there were also some changes where when you were falling and using, like if you jumped up and then you used Undertow and you fell to the ground, it would suck a lot of energy out of you because you were moving in Undertow. Same thing if you were in an elevator and you were in Undertow and the elevator moved, it would drain your energy. But other than that, it's like the quality of life type thing. So that is that. I hope you guys enjoyed. That is my alternate Hydroid. I forgot to mention his thing. So he had the Gorgon Wraith, he had the Bolto, and then he had the Geppetto. Just because I wanted to gear him as more of like a, I don't know, an aggressive Hydroid compared to my other one. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, hello!